back to the Goated Podcast. This is your host Isaiah, and today we got a special episode. It's my mock draft episode, so I'm just gonna be going through what I believe all 30 picks are gonna be in this draft. Starting out with the Minnesota Timberwolves, I have them selecting Anthony Edwards. So the Minnesota Timberwolves are really high on Malik Beasley, but he recently got in trouble pointing a gun at somebody. So it doesn't look like he'll probably be back with the team. Anthony Edwards kind of fills that role seamlessly. Most people have him as the best talent in the draft, so it's easy just to have him be selected right here. And with the number 2 pick, I have James Wiseman going to the Golden State Warriors. This one isn't very difficult. It's just their biggest position of need. One of the highest upside players in the draft in James Wiseman. And, if you could have a lineup of Steph, Clay, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, and Wiseman, it could be a pretty scary lineup to try to defend for the rest of the NBA, especially with Steph and Clay coming back this year. At number 3, I have the Charlotte Hornets selecting Onyeka Okongwu. There's been a lot of rumors that the Hornets want to trade up for Wiseman, but if they can't get Wiseman, then they will probably select Okongwu with their 3rd pick. They definitely are in need of a center. To have a front court of P.J. Washington and Onyeka Okongwu moving forward could be pretty good for them, honestly. They still have Devontae Graham as well. And, I think it'll be a good pick for them. In my opinion, he's my favorite player in the draft overall. I just love his game. He reminds me... He's similar to Bam. That's the comparison that keeps getting thrown around, but he doesn't have the passing ability or the ball handling of Bam, but his defensive switchability, I would say, is close to Bam's. And could be very valuable for the Hornets moving forward. At the number 4 pick, I have the Chicago Bulls selecting Deni Avdija. They have a desperate need at small forward. Avdija could play small forward as well as a small ball 4 for them. They still have Lauri Markkanen and Wendell Carter. They got rid of Jim Boylan, thank God, for Chicago Bulls fans. Avdija would fit a nice role for them. He's a really good playmaker. He's got to work on his shooting, but he seems to be a pretty interesting player with some really high upside. With the 5th pick, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers selecting Isaac Okoro. They desperately need defense in their lineup. They're starting Darius Garland and Colin Sexton together. And last year, that group got shredded, absolutely shredded defensively. To add someone like Okoro in there, in my opinion, who's probably the best defender in the draft, will definitely help them out a lot. If he could get just a solid 3-point shot, he could be maybe the best player in this draft. He's got really good passing ability, like I said. I think he's the best defender in this draft. And, I think he'd be a perfect fit for the Cleveland Cavaliers. At number 6, I have the Atlanta Hawks selecting Tyrese Halliburton. Tyrese Halliburton is a point guard / shooting guard. He's one of my favorite players in the draft easily. Can ball handle, can shoot. He's got a weird looking shot, but it goes in. He shot over 40% from 3 this year. His sophomore year at Iowa State. Perfect fit next to Trae Young, in my opinion. They selected, of course, they selected Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter last year. If they could run a small ball lineup with all 4 of them playing, with John Collins at the 5, maybe. They do have Clint Capella as well, but it just gives them some more versatility, and it takes some of the stress off Trae's shoulders. You could have another guy who can handle the ball instead of Trae handling it 1,000,000% of the time, like he has been. And with the 7th pick, kind of a surprise, I have the Detroit Pistons selecting LaMelo Ball. And there's been recent reports that LaMelo Ball has been doing bad in interviews people are maybe speculating that he's tanking these interviews on purpose to try to fall to the Knicks, which, I mean, it seems like it's working at this point because I do have him falling all the way to number 7 when a lot of people have him going number 1. But I believe if he fell to 7, that the Pistons would be thrilled um, to just have him fall in their laps like that. So, yeah, highest upside player left. Pistons need a point guard, so LaMelo Ball seems like the easy choice here. At 8, I have the New York Knicks selecting Killian Hayes. Killian Hayes is he's a really good player. He's out of France. He needs to work on his shooting, but he is a very good free throw shooter. He's really good at getting to the basket. Very good playmaker, very good defender. Could easily be one of the best players in this draft. The cool thing about this draft is most likely like the guys in the top 5, top 10, they're all around the same level. You know, there is no like bona fide top guy in this draft. So for all we know, Killian Hayes could easily be that guy. And yeah, the Knicks do need a point guard, so and he's obviously the best one left, so yeah, I have them going with him with this pick. At number 9, I got the Washington Wizards selecting Devin Vassell out of Florida State. Yeah, the Wizards, they're going to be bringing back John Wall and Bradley Beal next year. They selected Rui Hachimura last year. They got Thomas Bryant at their center. So they kind of do need a small forward. They really haven't had one since they traded away Otto Porter Jr. to the Bulls a couple years back. So if they were to add him, it would be a perfect fit. Very good shooter, very good defender. From what I've seen of him, really explosive, dunks in transition, pretty much anything you want in a 3-and-D type player, and that's exactly what Washington needs right now. With the 10th pick, I have the Phoenix Suns selecting Obi Toppin out of Dayton. Yeah, he falls a little bit here. I believe it's very possible. If he doesn't go to Cleveland at 5, I could see him dropping all the way to 10, just because a bunch of other teams don't really have a need for him between 6 through 9. So Phoenix Suns, they could take Toppin. He could fit in seamlessly with that lineup with Booker and DeAndre Ayton and Kelly Oubre. Yeah, just I think it'd be a very good pick for him. He's a really explosive player. He is older, but you know he could shoot. He's not the best defender, but he's really explosive. Like I said, could be a nice fit next to DeAndre Ayton. With the 11th pick, I have the San Antonio Spurs selecting Patrick Williams. Patrick Williams just seems like the perfect Spurs type player. He has been getting some Kawhi Leonard comparisons. I really don't see that, but he definitely has a lot of upside to him. He shot a decent percentage from 3 in college. He could definitely get better in that area, but he could defend. He's got an NBA body already. The dude's just jacked, honestly. Would be a perfect fit for the Spurs system. You know, they're looking to rebuild. So, could be a nice piece for the first year of their rebuild. At number 12, I have the Sacramento Kings selecting Aaron Nesmith out of Vanderbilt. Yeah, Buddy Hield has openly, I mean, I wouldn't say openly, but he's low-key been requesting a trade out of Sacramento. He's been pretty pissed off ever since he even signed his extension with Sacramento. He thought he didn't get enough, which, I mean that's for you to decide. I think Buddy Hield's a good player. One of the best shooters in the one of the best shooters in the world, but I think there's a good chance that he gets traded and will not be on the Kings next year. So they do need somebody to replace that role, and Aaron Nesmith is a guy who shot over 45% from 3, I believe. It was on a limited sample size, but in the games that he did play, he just shot the lights out of the ball, and because of that, I believe he'll be a perfect fit for the Sacramento Kings. At number 13, I have the New Orleans Pelicans selecting Jalen Smith out of Maryland. Jalen Smith is a Miles Turner type big man. He's pretty slim. He can move his feet pretty well. He could block shots, but he could shoot. That's his best skill that he has. And with the Pelicans, while having Zion Williamson playing the 4 spot for them, they're definitely going to need a big who could space the floor. And Jalen Smith could easily be that guy for them. They did select Jackson Hayes last year, but he hasn't really shown any shooting ability. They could play both of them, honestly. They could probably play them together. You play Jalen Smith at the 4 and Jackson Hayes at the 5 in some bigger lineups. So it still gives them some flexibility as to what they can do. At 14, I have the Boston Celtics selecting Tyrell Terry, and Tyrell Terry is a dream pick of mine for for the Celtics. He, in my opinion, is the best shooter in the draft. He reminds me a lot of Steph Curry coming out. I don't think he's as good as Steph, obviously, but he's shown some of the same ability as Steph in terms of just the types of threes he's hitting. He could hit off the catch. He could hit off screens. He could hit off movement. Pretty much any way you want him to be able to shoot, he can shoot. And he's very crafty around the rim, with some reverse layups. He's a very good passer as well. And he would give Boston the bench scoring that they desperately need. So, yeah, in my opinion, just a perfect fit for the Boston Celtics at 14. At 15, I have the Orlando Magic selecting Tyrese Maxey out of Kentucky. And Tyrese Maxey's been shooting up boards a little bit lately. He had a very nice workout at the Clutch Sports facility. Looked pretty good there. He could play either guard spot. He's 6'3", I believe. I think he could be a good fit next to Markelle Fultz in Orlando. He could shoot a little bit. Very good defender. Can pass. And Orlando kind of needs a shooting guard of the future, so he could be that guy. And like I said, very good pick for them. And the great thing about Kentucky players is it seems like every single time one of these guys gets drafted, they're always better in the NBA than they were in college. So Tyrese Maxey could be next on that list. At 16, I have the Portland Trailblazers selecting Saddiq Bey out of Villanova. And this is just a big need for them. As you saw at last year's playoffs, they had no depth at the small forward position, really. They were playing Carmelo Anthony a lot. They were playing Gary Trent Jr. a lot. Both those guys are not good defenders. And you saw how badly LeBron James abused them. Rightfully so. I mean, I'm not going to expect anybody to stop LeBron, but Saddiq Bey could be that 3-and-D player that they need. He's 6'8". He's a smart player coming out of Jay Wright's system in Villanova. So could be, in my opinion, will be the perfect fit for them at 16 if he's still there. There's a good chance he is gone by then, just because he seems like one of the safest picks in this draft. At 17, I have the Minnesota Timberwolves selecting Precious Achiuwa out of Memphis. Precious Achiuwa is a natural power forward. He did play a lot of the 5 last year with James Wiseman's suspension. But he's one of the most mobile bigs in this draft. Can switch onto pretty much anybody. Can block shots. He hasn't really shown the ability to shoot yet. He made about 13 threes last year in college. But if he could add that to his game, that would just make him even more deadly. And then you're putting him next to Karl Towns. You're not going to really need him to shoot right away, since Towns is the best shooting big of all time. You could just have him come in and play the 5 on offense and play the 4 on defense, so it'll be a perfect fit for them. They've tried using 2 big lineups in Minnesota before. They selected Justin Patton a couple years ago. That one hasn't worked out. And before that, they were using Gorgui Dieng next to Karl Towns a lot. And obviously that didn't work out. So maybe Precious Achiuwa could be that guy. At the 18th pick, I have the Dallas Mavericks selecting Desmond Bane out of TCU. Desmond Bane's been shooting up draft boards. They've been saying he's been interviewing great. He just seems like a guy who's going to be a great role player in the NBA for a really long time. He could shoot off the catch. He could shoot off pick and roll. He's a very good playmaker, very good defender. His arms, he doesn't have the very best wingspan, but uh, other than that, that's pretty much the only thing that's keeping him from being a lottery pick, in my opinion, is his wingspan. Very good player and perfect fit next to Luka Doncic, in my opinion. You know, if you're going to be having Luka as your point guard, you're going to need as many good defenders around him as possible, and Desmond Bain fits that bill perfectly. At 19, I have the Brooklyn Nets selecting Josh Green out of Arizona. Um, just a typical 3 and D player, but he's very explosive too. So he'll be able to attack closeouts, and with Kyrie and KD coming back next year, they're gonna need as many guys who could play off the ball as possible. And Josh Green seems just like a perfect fit for them. You know, at number 20, I have the Miami Heat selecting Zeke Naji. Um, he's been kind of getting a lot of attention lately. He's been working out for a lot of teams. He had an in-person workout with Miami. That's why I have him going to Miami. Miami has a big need at the big man spot because they really don't have any other true centers on the roster outside of Bam. So Zeke Naji, he could block shots. He moves his feet well, and he showed some nice shooting ability in his workouts. So could be a very good fit for the Heat if he was to fall to number 20. At number 21, I have the Philadelphia 76ers selecting Kira Lewis Jr. out of Alabama. He sort of reminds me of De'Aaron Fox. Really explosive, really fast. Has, he showed some pretty decent shooting ability at Alabama. I believe he's a sophomore, but yeah, he performed really well this year, and Philly does have a need at the smaller guard spot. I can't really say point guard because Ben Simmons is their point guard, but he could maybe give them what Markel Fultz couldn't give them. He's definitely a better shooter than Fultz is and more explosive in my opinion, so would be a really good pick for them if he was there. At number 22, I have the Denver Nuggets selecting Jameis Ramsey out of Texas Tech. And yeah, to me, this is just like a typical Denver Nuggets pick. They always seem to be selecting these combo guards who are good defenders, good shooters. Guys like Will Barton and Gary Harris, guys like that. He and Jameis Ramsey could be that next guy. For Denver. He can handle the ball, he can pass, he can shoot, he can defend. He's just kind of everything that Denver really would want with the 22nd pick. At number 23, I have the Utah Jazz selecting Cole Anthony. And yeah, this is a big drop for Cole Anthony. He was one of the most hyped up players coming into last year. The son of Greg Anthony. And yeah, it's pretty unfortunate. He played for a really bad team in North Carolina last year. No spacing at all. He was kind of having to carry the load on offense. He was taking a lot of bad shots, but I believe if he's put in the right environment, he could be one of the best players in this draft. He definitely has some of the highest upside of any player in this draft. Uh, and they do need a point guard of the future next to Donovan Mitchell, and Cole Anthony, I could see being that guy. Very good shooter. Needs to work on his playmaking, but other than that, I believe he is a perfect fit for the Jazz at 23. At 24, I have the Milwaukee Bucks selecting Daniel Oturu out of Minnesota. And yeah, with this pick, it just comes down to the Bucks don't really have any other centers outside of Brook Lopez. And whenever they do play another center, it's Giannis basically. It's just Giannis playing the five with four shooters around him, which a lineup that works for them. But Oturu could provide in the future what Brook Lopez does. He's shown some really good shooting ability. He's got some good touch in the post area and could block shots, And next to Giannis, you just need four shooters basically, and Oturu is the guy that could provide that for them. So that's who I have them going with the 24. With the 25th pick, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder selecting Alexej Pokusevski. Yeah, he's definitely a weird player. Um, he's 7 feet tall, but he's like 200 pounds, right? So very very skinny, but he's shown great passing ability, great shooting ability for his age and for his size. He's definitely a project, but the Oklahoma City Thunder, they can afford to wait on someone like him because they're rebuilding anyway. And if he does hit, if this pick does hit, he could easily be maybe the best player in this draft. He's very raw. He's a project, but that's what people said about Giannis a couple years ago, and you saw how that worked out. So, with the 26th pick, I have the Boston Celtics selecting Xavier Tillman out of Michigan State. I really love Tillman's game. He reminds me a lot of Al Horford. Very good passer, very good defender, can roll to the rim. Everything you want in a big man, honestly, and the Celtics do have a need there. Um, I honestly could I can't see the Celtics taking all three picks. They just don't have the roster. Uh, they just don't have the roster spots. But if they were to take all three, I definitely have Terry and Tillman as their first two picks, just because they fit the needs that the Celtics need the most, in my opinion. With the 27th pick, I have the New York Knicks selecting Jaden McDaniels out of Washington. Jaden McDaniels has star potential, in my opinion. Uh, he could play the three or the four spot. He's shown some decent shooting ability. If he adds that to his game, then, like I said, could be one of the best players in this draft. But where I really love Jaden McDaniels for the Knicks is his defensive ability, and just I don't know. He had some really really nice defensive possessions in college. Looks like he could really be something special. If he puts it all together. And with the Knicks, they just need to take as many high upside players as possible. So with Killian Hayes and Jaden McDaniels, I think that'd be a dream draft for the New York Knicks with where they're at right now. Um, at the 28th pick, I have the Los Angeles Lakers selecting Grant Riller out of Charleston. Um, yeah, Grant Riller just seems like one of the most NBA ready players in this draft, and that's definitely what the Lakers are going to be looking for since they are going to be competing for a championship again next year. Grant Riller just seems like a guy who can come in and shoot threes, handle the ball in a pinch if they need him to. And yeah, like I said, he's an older player, but with the older players comes experience, and that's what the Lakers definitely would want right now. And he's a guy who could give them some scoring off the bench as well. Um, with the 29th pick, I have the Toronto Raptors selecting R.J. Hampton. R.J. Hampton fell a lot uh, this year based off all the mock drafts I've seen. Uh, Coming into this year, it kind of looked like he had a chance to be the number one overall pick, but he had a very bad season in New Zealand. That's where he played this year. And yeah, honestly, if the Raptors, it seems like the Raptors are one of the best uh, player development teams in the NBA. They always seem to get the most out of the guys that they draft or guys that are even undrafted, with guys like Pascal Siakam and Fred Van Vliet. So, yeah, RJ Hampton is another high upside guy that if he does hit, could be, maybe the point guard of the future for the Raptors, with Kyle Lowry getting older. And to wrap it up with the 30th pick, I have the Boston Celtics selecting Leandro Bolmaro. Uh, I believe I believe he's plays for FC Barcelona. He kind of he's kind of like a big point guard to me. He's listed on the draft sites as a small forward. The Celtics could be losing Gordon Hayward pretty soon. With whether it's this year or next year. Bolmaro seems to be willing to be stashed for a year, which the Celtics would probably be willing to take because, like I said, they don't have the roster spots to roster 3 players in this draft. So they could be just looking to, take him and stash him overseas. And he kind of does have the Hayward skill set in terms of, his ball handling and playmaking at the 3 spot. He just needs to work on his shooting, and maybe another year overseas could help him with that. But yeah, guys, with that, thank you all for listening. Catch you all next time. Have a great night.